She was in front of the mirror, twirling in a red dress that reflected the glow under the hallway light. Not too tacky, not too prudish. Her curls were loose. Her eyes glittered. And for the first time in a while, Sophia Martinez allowed herself to get excited. It was her first blind date ever. She promised her mother she'd be home by 2 a.m. At 10:10 p.m., she got into her bright red Pontiac, waved goodbye through the window, and pulled away into the chilly El Paso evening. She was never seen again. What transpired next would become one of the most heinous and senseless crimes the city had ever seen, a mystery that spanned 2 states, shattered a family, and showed how easily a young life full of promise can be extinguished by the hands of evil. This is the chilling tale of Sophia Martinez, the girl in the red dress that disappeared into night, and the tortuous path of secrets, betrayal, and violence that ultimately led to what befell her. Welcome. This is Crime Uncovered, where every case has a story, and the truth is often stranger and darker than fiction. If you haven't subscribed yet, kindly do so to stay updated on the latest crimes we uncover. Sophia Martinez was born on November 14, 1981, in the border town of El Paso, Texas, the middle child of 3 daughters born to a family built on the pillars of hope and hard work. Her parents, Juan and Lourdes Martinez, had immigrated to the United States from Mexico in the late 70s with nothing but determination and drive. Her parents held down multiple jobs to put food on the table for their daughters, living in tight spaces but filling their home with love. Sophia grew up warm and lively, much closer to her older sister Delsa and Marianne, the baby sister. They shared everything: toys, secrets, dreams. However, cracks started showing up when Sophia was around 12. The marriage went bad, and by 1995, they divorced. Lourdes married Iladio Lucho, a man as wealthy as her son. Juan began his own life with another family. As Juan drifted away, Sophia never resented it. She was always caring and positive and became a source of stability in her mother's stepfamily. Sophia was independent since the age of 15, when she began working part-time in a clothing store at the mall. She carefully saved her paychecks, all for a single purpose: to buy a red Pontiac. Her family finally supported her in fulfilling that dream. When she turned 18 in November 1999, she finally purchased it. That car, new and clean, was more than a vehicle. It represented freedom and achievement. By the time 2000 came around, Sophia was getting ready to graduate high school and had already been accepted at the University of Texas to study history. She was going to be a teacher. She'd picked out her prom dress, had her yearbook photo taken, and had her life mapped out. The future, though, had different plans. Though warm and popular, Sophia had never dated seriously. Work and school were the priority. She'd gotten her fair share of teenage attention, but nothing had ever turned into an actual relationship. That changed, or so it would appear, in early March of 2000. A colleague at the mall by the name of Justin volunteered to arrange a date with a close friend. Sophia was reluctant at first, but finally agreed. This would be her first blind date. They decided to meet at an upscale local nightclub, which accepts members 18 years and above. The date was fixed for Friday, March 10th. For reasons not quite clear to anyone, that Friday just felt different from the beginning. A tingle filled the Martinez house. A quiet sort of expectation trailed Sophia from room to room as she worked through her homework. She burst through the front door like a gust of wind after school, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Her smile was wide, full of nerves and teenager thrills. This was no ordinary Friday. It was the first blind date. She disappeared into her bedroom with a stack of clothes in her arms and a fire in her eyes. She was back out in minutes, spinning in the hallway in a denim skirt. Too casual, her mother said. Then came a flowered dress. Too innocent, Marianne teased. Laughter erupted from all parts of the house as she changed and changed, coming out like a model on a catwalk, asking for approval from her family. It was not just a matter of impressing some stranger. It was a matter of feeling beautiful, daring, adult. And then, finally, she stood in a bright red evening dress. The room felt quiet. It hugged her in all the right places, elegant, not tacky. The kind of red that shone in soft light but demanded attention. "This one," her mother whispered. "Definitely this one." Sophia stood up straight. She did her dark hair in soft, tumbling waves that framed her face with understated perfection. Her hands shook slightly as she applied mascara, then some lipstick. She dabbed a spot of her favorite cologne on her collarbone, a scent her sisters said reminded them of wildflowers and summer breezes. She slipped into a modest pair of heels and retrieved a small clutch purse that barely held her ID and a tube of lip gloss. By 10 p.m., she was ready. She stepped into the living room slowly, as if unveiling a final masterpiece. The family froze. Her mother gasped. Her younger siblings clapped. Her stepfather nodded in admiration. Sophia laughed, blushing under the weight of their love. "I'll be home by 2, she said, glancing at the clock. "Promise. I've got work in the morning." Lourdes played with her hair again. Her sisters embraced her one by one. It wasn't fear they were experiencing, pride, maybe a touch of overprotectiveness. Sophia was always reliable. She did what she said she would do. She never stayed out too late. She never caused concern. She stepped into El Paso's cool night, moonlight capturing the sparkle of her dress. Her red Pontiac shone at the curb. The one thing she adored nearly as much as her family, newly waxed and immaculate. She slipped into the driver's seat, waved with a cheerful smile through the window, and moved off into the radiance of streetlights. They followed her taillights until they vanished. No one realized it would be the last time they ever saw her alive. An eerie calm had fallen over the Martinez home the next morning. Maria knocked on her sister's door and waited to hear Sophia complain about waking up for work. But that was not going to happen this time. The room was quiet. She pushed open the door, and when she did, her heart sank. The bed was made spotless. The work shoes remained by the closet. Her ID, which she always kept with her, still rested on the vanity. It was as if she never went back home. Seconds later, the phone rang. It was Sophia's manager at the mall. She had failed to show up for her shift, something totally out of character. Panic immediately set in. There was no cell phone to call, uncommon but not unusual in 2000, so the family panicked. They called every friend, classmate, and colleague they could think of. No one had seen her since the previous evening. They didn't know the name of the man she was to meet. There was no number to dial, nowhere to begin. Lourdes dialed the police, shaking as she talked by nightfall. Her voice cracked now as she described her daughter's red dress, her new Pontiac, the time she'd left, the way she curled her hair. Whatever she could remember, she relayed it, hoping that would be enough to find her. The next day, March 11th, along the state border in New Mexico, a state trooper came upon a vehicle parked off a dirt road about 100 yards from the highway. It was covered in desert dust, a red Pontiac, abandoned like a ghost in the middle of nowhere. What they discovered inside transformed a missing persons case into something much worse. Dried blood stained the steering wheel, headrest, and driver's seat. The passenger side window had been blown out by a bullet. The car was the scene of a violent struggle. Whoever had been driving had been hurt, possibly killed. Police traced the registration directly to Lourdes. When they told her, her voice was barely audible. She would never leave that car, she said. Not Sophia. There was no sign of her daughter, no body, just a terrible silence. For a short time, there was hope. Maybe she had escaped. Maybe she was hurt and hiding somewhere, waiting to be found. But that fragile hope was shattered the next day. It was March 12th, and some teenagers on a hike near the outskirts of El Paso saw something suspicious, a flash of red-colored clothing peeking out from under the bushes. Approaching cautiously, they witnessed something that made them flee in horror. A female body lay on the ground. She was in a red evening dress, her battered and bruised body splayed out. Her face was inconceivable. The dress, the floor, and her hands were stained with blood. But what detectives found inside her bra was tragically incongruous. A tiny, folded photograph. It was Sophia, smiling and holding her baby brother. Lourdes had said she carried it around at all times, near her heart. She had. And now, that photo was the sole method of identification for her. The autopsy confirmed the Martinez family's worst fears. Sophia had been shot 5 times in the head. One of the bullets was found buried in the sand beneath her. Her face was unrecognizably disfigured, and the report confirmed that she had been sexually assaulted as well. But what drew the investigators' attention were the injuries to her hands: severe gashes, bruising, torn nails. Sophia had fought back. She hadn't gone quietly. She had struggled to the bitter end. DNA was collected from her body and from around her. Toxicology reports showed she had no alcohol or drugs in her system. She had been stone-cold sober and likely terrified. Her keys, purse, and license were gone, but for some reason, her wallet still was in the car. It seemed like a robbery, but the brutality suggested something worse. Shoe prints were scattered about the scene. Most were vague, but one was clear: a good print in packed sand, which was later shown to have great value. And then there was this terrifying detail: the murderer possessed her keys and her license, which had her home address listed. The Martinez family was told by police to replace their locks and get a security system. Now their sorrow was mixed with fear. Detectives looked to her vehicle for additional information. Inside, they discovered a balled-up ATM receipt on the floor beneath the driver's seat. The time stamp read 10:23 p.m., the evening she went missing. It placed her at a specific ATM blocks from her house, and that ATM was fitted with surveillance cameras. When detectives downloaded the footage, they encountered something they weren't ready for. The last minutes of Sophia's life are recorded. When investigators pulled the ATM surveillance footage, they never expected to be watching a crime commit itself in real time. But what they found was horrifying. From the multiple angles, stitched together from different cameras around the ATM and nearby buildings, they had begun reconstructing Sophia's last known moments. It was 10:22 p.m. Sophia's red Pontiac slid into the ATM lane. The headlights flared in the darkness as she pulled up in front of the machine. She leaned halfway out of the driver's window, inserted her card, and withdrew $20. She didn't pull away from the machine as soon as the transaction was over. She lingered for a moment, absently checking her makeup in her side mirror. She reapplied her lipstick, a common, innocent gesture in what should have been a typical night. But then, a shadow appeared behind her vehicle. From the side of the building, a figure in dark clothing crept closer. He wore a black cap pulled low over his head. His steps were slow, deliberate. Sophia did not know he was there yet as she kept cleaning up her appearance. Then, in one swift, horrifying motion, the man rose a gun and fired through the open window. It was not a kill shot. The bullet tore through her cheek and out her nose, a cruel blow intended to incapacitate and terrify, but not kill. Sophia stumbled backward, holding her face. But in the next image, she seemed to obey. Still bleeding, she reinserted her card and took out another $200. The man acted fast, opening the door on the passenger side and getting into the vehicle. With the gun now against the back of her head, Sophia had no choice but to drive off. The Pontiac drove off camera. The cameras never recorded it again. The video was grainy, the quality poor by today's standards. Facial features were impossible to discern. All detectives could say was that the assailant looked like a white male, medium height and build, with possible facial hair. It was quite sufficient to determine that Sophia had been kidnapped, and that she had fought to stay alive. Police promptly made the video public. It was shown on local TV stations with urgent requests for information. The public was warned to be cautious. A killer was on the loose. But in spite of the heavy media coverage, there were no solid leads. Sophia's final moments had been captured on tape, but her killer's face remained hidden in the shadows. Weeks turned into months. Leads dissipated. Public tips slowed to a trickle and then stopped. The silence weighed on investigators. The late March discovery of this, however, was a different tale entirely. A man walking his dog in the area where Sophia's body had originally been found stumbled upon something half buried in the sand: a driver's license. When he turned it over, he was met with the face of a young woman. Investigators feared the worst. Another victim? Another murder? But when they ran the ID, they found the woman alive. Her purse had been stolen weeks earlier, from the same shopping mall where Sophia had worked. The discovery sent a chill through the department. This wasn't chance. It wasn't opportunistic. It hinted at pattern. A predator, perhaps stalking women in the vicinity of that mall, biding its time until the moment was right to act. Still, in spite of fresh urgency, the case languished. Until September 30th, 2000. Police received an out-of-the-blue call from a 20-year-old woman named Heather Napawatsi. Nervous, guarded, but direct, Heather told police that she knew who murdered Sophia Martinez. And she has proof. She handed over a partially burned driver's license. It was Sophia's. Heather explained she'd been too afraid to speak up before. But now, with her boyfriend Michael Jacques jailed on unrelated drug charges, and her own financial fortunes declining, she had a reason to come forward. Fear and desperation had given way to something else, the promise of reward money, and maybe a taste of justice. She named the suspects, her boyfriend Michael and his best friend, William Berkeley. And the nightmare of what she told was only starting. Heather said that William and Michael were broke and desperate. William had picked up Michael on March 10th from a hospital, where Heather was hospitalized. She had heard them plotting something illegal. Later, she had found latex gloves missing from a supply cabinet. Hours later, Michael returned alone and told her that they'd made some money. Later on, Berkeley showed Heather Sophia's ID and told her that the girl could be taken care of if she needed to be. He even threw the ID on a grill and burned it. After seeing news coverage, Heather recognized Berkeley from the ATM footage. She also noticed that he'd drastically altered his appearance since that night. She handed over what was left of the ID and made good on her promise to go to the police with the Pontiac keys Michael had discarded. Jacques was brought in by detectives. He confessed to helping Berkeley get rid of the car, but swore he wasn't part of the assault. He said he'd only pointed Berkeley as a person pulled up to the ATM, but his stop gesture had been mistaken for go. Berkeley, 20, was arrested in early October. Family members and friends described Berkeley as troubled, violent, abusive to girlfriends and even his mother, cruel to animals. But he was bright and talented, too. Berkeley initially confessed to the robbery and murder, telling police he did it for money. But when confronted further, he said Michael planned the crime and accused him of picking the victim. One thing became horribly clear. For $220, they had taken the life of a young woman. When the case eventually reached trial, the friendship between the two suspects, once thick as thieves, buckled under pressure. Inside the courtroom, William Berkeley and Michael Jacques weren't friends anymore. Each had become an adversary, someone who had to deflect guilt and had to present the other man as a mastermind. The courtroom became a war zone of betrayal, since every oath spoken helped unravel their former alliance. But evidence against Berkeley was too big. Forensic experts had matched a .22 caliber handgun recovered in his parents' house to the bullets in Sophia's body. His DNA was not only on her body, but also was present in the back seat of her vehicle and on the gloves left at the crime scene. A pair of sneakers taken from his bedroom matched the single, unique sneaker print in the desert, the only identifiable footprint left near her body. Under questioning, Berkeley attempted to deflect blame, but his shifting alibis, absence of emotion, and mounting stack of evidence spoke volumes. His motive? Money. His method? Brutal. His remorse? None. On April 7, 2002, William Berkeley was found guilty of capital murder and sentenced to death by lethal injection. Michael Jacques was instead found guilty of conspiracy to commit robbery and evidence tampering. Even though he maintained that he never had anything against Sophia, his involvement in planning, evading, and throwing away her car were used against him as evidence of complicity. November 3, 2002 saw Jacques found guilty and sentenced to a life sentence, with parole eligibility after serving 40 years. For the Berkeley family, the verdicts were justice, but no sentence could reverse the anguish of her loss. William Berkeley never showed remorse. Throughout years of appeals and courtroom processes, he never apologized to Sophia's family, not once. In the spring of 2010, He was put to death by lethal injection. His last words were brief, impersonal. He never spoke Sophia's name. Heather Napawatsi, the witness whose testimony solved the case, received the reward of $55,000, but her life unraveled. Child Protective Services removed her children from her after she spoke up, saying she was unstable. She battled chronic kidney disease and passed away alone at age 35, her health declining steadily. Anything she had earned, it never knew peace. Sophia's red dress, long since carefully chosen for a promising night out, was preserved as evidence. Torn and bloodied, it was a ghostly reminder of innocence lost. The case scarred the El Paso community. Sophia wasn't taking any chances. She wasn't in the wrong place. She was just a smart, hardworking girl, a future teacher with plans, dreams, and a compassionate heart. And for $220, two young men took her life. She never went to prom, never took a seat in her first college class, never lived the life she spent years preparing for. Her story is still told today, not to relive the nightmare, but to keep her memory alive, and to remind us how readily beauty, promise, and hope can be destroyed by senseless violence. Thank you for watching. Every victim deserves their story told. If you found this story shocking and heartbreaking, subscribe to Crime Uncovered and help keep their memory alive. What do you think about Sophia's murder? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, keep questioning everything.